What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Wedge. My name is Sia Nejad, and I'm joined this morning by Jason Sobel and Mike McClure. We've got 24 gentlemen within 4 shots of the lead here. Jason, it does look like it's profiling for a pretty exciting final round.
This is either going to be the most fun Sunday show that we've done for the Early Wedge or the most frustrating Sunday show that we've done for the Early Wedge. Maybe it'll be both, but I feel like a lot of times we've come into this show on a Sunday morning and said, well, it's probably this guy, but if you want to take a shot on that guy, you can. Today, it's like, yeah, could be anybody. I will preface the entire show right now by saying that anyone who puts in a comment saying, do you think blank can win this golf tournament? My answer is going to be yes.
Well, that's the thing, Mike. This sets up so interestingly. And by the way, we're coming at you at 10:30. These shows are going to be probably earlier. We think in the 10:30 range, maybe 11. But make sure you join us. Make sure you have your SportsLine YouTube notifications turned on. Mike, I've got Ryan Fox as one of my 4 outrights from the Early Wedge betting show. Now, granted, I'm kind of embarrassed because I did Ryan Fox in the without Rory McIlroy market, which is like kind of silly looking back. But either way, it's still 50 to 1.
Definitely going to be Rory.
Yeah, right. It was never going to be Roy. So with that in mind, like he's in the lead here with Manacero. But Mike, this feels like it's truly anybody's game that is, I would say, like 11 under or better. But even the 10 unders and maybe even the 9 unders in play.
Yeah, I'll say some of the 10 unders are in play. 9, considering the scoring conditions we've seen, I think it would take not only something special, but something pretty disastrous at the top. I do think that the 10 under is where I would stop. And look, love the Ryan Fox call. I've got him in DFS. I'm rooting for Ryan Fox. The guy that I played everywhere in DFS that I think could still win this tournament is actually Alex Smalley. He is 4 shots back. He had 1 bad round in round 2, but he is still in this tournament 3rd strokes gained tee to green. He is going off at 80 to 1 right now.
Wow.
80 to 1, 4 shots back. Like, yeah, it's unlikely at 4 shots back considering how easy it is to score, but 80 to 1, I think the number should be closer to 45 to 50 to 1. So if you haven't gotten any Smalley and you're into taking long shots like that, 80 to 1 is pretty crazy.
Well, so here's what we're going to do, and maybe we can have Josh put up the current odds board now as the tournament is very much underway. But some of these guys that are in, 10 under and within 4 shots of the lead, I mean, they're not going off for a while. So we have time to consider some of these bets. And I'm just curious, we're going to talk about some outrights here. We're certainly going to talk about some matchups that are, plenty of matchups that are on the board, obviously. And don't forget, when we do these shows, we always look ahead. So in about 20 minutes or so, we're going to look at the U.S. Open and talk about some players, just talk about the course a little bit, just a quick preview and maybe some players that we're leaning on. There's certainly a couple plays I already like for the U.S. Open. But Jason, as we look at this board, Ryan Fox at the top at plus 350, which I will say is better than some of the other books that have him at like plus 330. You got Matteo Manacero at plus 600. I mean, Cameron Young at plus 3,000. We can go down the board. There's plenty in play here. Are there a couple of names, Jason, that sort of jumped out to you that you said, I wouldn't mind sprinkling on 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 names?
Yeah, I'll give you 3 names right here. And look, if you want to convince me that you like 3 completely different names, like I said off the top, I can be convinced. I mean, I'm very open in this one to believing that really anything can happen of these top 2 dozen guys on the board right now. I'm going to start with Matt McCarty. He's a guy that's proven he can win. He won 3 times last year on the Corn Ferry Tour, then won on the PGA Tour in Utah. He's shown that he doesn't always have his best stuff, but when he does have his best stuff, he can step on the gas pedal and go out there and get a victory. I like the 8.5 to 1 number right now, so I think McCarty makes a whole lot of sense. And then I'm moving further down the board. Look, if we were ever going to think Cameron Young was going to win a golf tournament, it was going to be a tournament where he's coming off 4 months of pretty poor play and just starting to come back, a tournament where no one's really looking at him. He doesn't have a 3-shot lead going into the final round. Cam Young can go out and shoot 63, 64 and win this golf tournament today. And then speaking of shooting those numbers, Ben On, who we don't even see here on the screen, I believe is at 40 to 1. Ben On is playing some really good golf the last couple of days. If you're looking for someone to kind of jump up there and shoot another low one and go take this thing, I don't mind him as well.
Yeah, Ben On's metrics, particularly in round 3, kind of gaining everywhere. Although with the putter, he did lose a little bit. So if he bounces back with the putter, that's not a bad play. Ben on at 11 under, 11 under. Cam Young also at 11 under. Mike, before you give out a few names, and I know you mentioned Alex Smalley, but we have Jeff Stenberg in here, among others, Brian Tonsani, Brad Morris, Franco is in here, Alex Jones is in here, among others. Hit the like button if you could. But there was a specific question about Jake Knapp, who I believe, is 12 under, shot 4 under yesterday. He says, is buying a Knapp ticket at 13-1 foolish? We saw it at BetMGM at 12-1, but whether it's 12 or 13, your thoughts on Jake Knapp here, Mike?
No, I don't think it's foolish. Like, I think Jason kind of laid it out perfectly there. If you like anyone that's within, I say 4 shots, but 2 or 3 shots. Yeah. I mean, you definitely, this thing's pretty wide open, as evident by the pricing out there. So yeah, I don't have any issues with Knapp. I'm not in love with the play, but I could certainly see it.
I'm trying to think of, as somebody who's got the Fox ticket, I'm trying to think of another couple of names that I would want to spring on. I mean, Mackenzie Hughes is not a guy I like. Can we put the odds back up one more time? Because I'd like to see Mackenzie. I think it was like plus 850. It wasn't something super. Thank you, Josh, by the way. Plus 1200. Okay. Mackenzie Hughes jumps out to me again. Not a guy I normally pay. I thought the Matt McCarty play was interesting. I don't know that I love the plus 850, but McCarty not getting the respect he deserves. I mean, so I love that call out. Cam Young I like as well. I don't know. Maybe the Smalley play is certainly interesting. I'm a Rosner guy. I liked him in DFS this week as well. If you watch the Monday DFS show, I think it might be Mackenzie Hughes for me. Sobel, go ahead.
I will say, Sia, that I think now is a good time that people are jumping on some live outrights to sort of change your way of thinking, at least for what I was thinking coming into this. 7,400 yards, par 70. There's some thick rough. I was thinking you've got to be a big, brawny bomber type of guy, a Taylor Pendrith type, who's a guy that we liked coming into it. That's not necessarily been the case. Mateo Manacero is a very short hitter. He's up there. Mackenzie Hughes is a short hitter. So
McCarty's a short hitter as well.
He's a shorter hitter too. Yeah. I think that as you sort of redo your card, relook at how you're going to attack on Sunday, you kind of change your way of thinking, especially on a golf course that we haven't seen before. So keep that in mind, that what you thought on Tuesday, Wednesday shouldn't necessarily be what you're thinking on Sunday as well.
David Talk says, good morning, team. And he says, Hughes plus 1,200, that he agrees with that one. Josh, before we get into matchups, do you mind pulling up the top 10 final placement? Hopefully you can find that pretty easily. I'm looking at it at BetMGM. They've got the top 5 and top 10 market. Other books have top 20 markets as well, but there was one I wanted to ask you guys about, and I don't know if you guys have any plays that you might consider in the top 10 or the top 5, but we know BetMGM includes ties, so we don't have to look for including ties. The name I wanted to bring up, kind of a household name that we're going to maybe talk about when we do the U.S. Open preview in a few minutes, Ludwig Åberg, plus 250 to top 10. Now, if memory serves, he's 9 under. And to be inside the top 10, he's really just 2 shots out, right? We have such a log jam that he's like T20 something right now, or T29, something like that. But everybody's so bunched up. Plus 250 to top 10. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Would that be a number? Like, I'm not even trying to take like the big name here, because I do think it's anybody's game, but I like how Ludwig's been playing. I like the ball striking. I like what he did last Sunday. I like that he's probably going to be in somewhat of attack mode, which should be successful for him here leading into the U.S. Open. Plus 250. Your thoughts, Mike?
I don't mind it. My concern is that it's so, I keep saying so easy, and I don't like to say that because it's not easy to do what any of these guys are doing. But when the scoring is so gettable, that's when I don't like to lean into guys like Ludwig as much. I want him, I think where he separates and where his skill set shines is when things are really difficult. That's where I want him to kind of only need a stroke to move up the leaderboard a spot or two to get to that finishing position. So I'm not super high on it, only because I just think it's extremely high variance in these conditions. Having said that, I also I did look to bet against him in a head-to-head matchup today. Shane Lowry at even money.
Okay. By the way, Alex Smalley's plus 250. Is this the same top 10 market? So, I mean, your thoughts there, Mike?
Yeah, I like the Smalley number better personally. I think he's going to be kind of firing at pens there. Alex Smalley's basically been the best player in this field, maybe the second best player in this field this week, outside of round 2. Just a disaster round 2. everywhere else he's looked good, and I think Smalley remains mispriced.
Jason, any of these numbers, any of these players jumping out to you in terms of a top 10 or a top 5 finishing position?
Not based on the point that I was about to make, Sia. And I think this has happened, it happens a handful of times a year, I think, on the PGA Tour, where going into Sunday, we're like, wow, what a leaderboard. We've got all these players bunched. This is going to be fantastic. It might be an 8-way playoff at the end of the day. And what happens is, especially like Mike was saying, where the scoring is so low and we're seeing so many guys kind of in the same range, that essentially everyone shoots 66 and the leaderboard looks kind of similar to what it is. And it's really hard to move up or down because no one's going over par. No one's shooting a bad number. And I say nobody. It's not nobody. It's very few players are really moving. And yeah, there might be a 63 in there somewhere, but it's hard to move up. It's tough to move down. Everyone kind of slots in where they are just based on the scoring's all pretty tight. Like everyone's kind of in that 65, 66, 67 range. So we just don't see a whole lot of movement. So I don't know. I mean, yes, there's going to be somebody who's at a nice plus money number right now that jumps into the top 10. Which one of these guys is it? Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the Smalley call. Taylor Pendrith's the guy that I've been on all week, but that also was based on what I was just talking about a few minutes ago, that I thought this was going to be a bomber's course, and it hasn't turned out to be. So kind of change your way of thinking and get off the guys that are more inclined to play better golf on those bigger golf courses. And he's that kind of player. So, I think a lot of things have changed over the last few days, but I would just warn people that even though it's that bunched of a leaderboard, even though we've had a lot of movement, it just feels like one of those days where everyone, makes 5 or 6 birdies. Everyone's kind of in the same place. There's just not quite as much movement as you would think.
I did notice another big name on there. I'll just get a yes or no from Ichi here. Burns for top 10. And by the way, he's 10 under right now, which I believe puts him at T16, obviously in a huge logjam, was plus 175. So would that be a bet you'd be willing to make, Jason, yes or no on Burns?
Yeah, I could get down with Burns. He's a guy that I've been on throughout the entire week, and he's a guy that I like. He's been playing some good golf. He's played well in final rounds recently. So, yeah, I could be okay with Burns.
I kind of like that too. And I'm not even a Burns guy. Mike McClure, your thoughts? Plus 175, top 10, including ties on Sam Burns.
Yeah, I think he does. I think he gets it done. I'm not in love with the number, but again, some of that's for what we've already talked about in the sense that the scoring is so easy. I don't think that he separates a ton there, but at that price point, his skill set, the way he's playing, I think that it's a fine play.
Yeah, I mean, skill set wise, if you can separate yourself with the putter and just have a hot putting day, we know that Burns is more likely to do that than some of the other guys on the course. And frankly, I think some of these guys at the top are probably going to regress with the putter. Like I'm looking at Kevin Yu and some names like that, maybe even Lee Hodges, that could have some bad putting days and just kind of fall out of the top 10 pretty easily there. Let's look at some matchups before we pivot. Let's start with what David Talk put in the chat. I don't love this play personally, but he says, I put Rasmus over Hisetsune match play in the SportsLine Discord. David, thanks for being so active in the SportsLine Discord. Mike, any thoughts? I mean, listen, I played Rasmus in, in DFS Showdown yesterday. I played some good players too, but Rasmus was not one of them. I think he had some trouble with the putter. I think Hisetsune is so kind of like reliable. I just don't know that I want to take the volatility of Rasmus. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I don't love it. I honestly, Rio's not someone I really want to bet against here. I think he's still very, very talented in this spot. Yeah, I don't love it. I don't have a strong take one way or the other, but just generally something that I would just be looking to avoid. Jason?
Well, Rasmus is 1 under through 2, and his is even through 2. So I'm going to take Rasmus based on the fact that I've been given a shot already.
David, 2 things, and I love you, but you like, I guess you put this in at 10 for 5 minutes ago. It had already started. So like, just give us that info, because we're looking at so many things right now. I didn't know they were out on the course. The other thing is, if anybody does have some plays, make sure you put the juice in there as well. Obviously, David was just noting that he took that, but I thought he was asking a question. So my bad on that. Let's look at some that actually haven't gone off. By the way, you could still probably take that matchup if you want. The juice is just going to be pretty steep on Rasmus. Corey Connors, this one is interesting to me. and I get the Canadian narrative and all that. This one starts at 11:05, so we still have 19 minutes. Corey Connors is minus 145 over Keith Mitchell, who is plus 115. Jason, this seems like a tailor-made, and I'm not saying I'm taking this, but this seems like a tailor-made play to take Keith Mitchell and certainly not lay the minus 145.
No, I will take Corey Connors all day in that matchup. I hate the
Dang it.
number. It's probably more of a find something else you like and parlay them together. But no, I'm done trusting Keith Mitchell in final rounds, whether he's in contention, whether he's way back. Keith Mitchell on the weekend is not getting my money.
Yeah, that's fair. I still like the plus 115 because I think I can lean on Keith Mitchell's ball striking, but I get it. And Corey's going to be so motivated. Mike, any thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Corey Connors' side. I don't love the number on it. I think it's, clear why the number is where it is. Now, considering the conditions and all of that, in a lot of these matchups, if you would just essentially take the plus 110 or better on each side, I think you're probably going to come out ahead if you're doing it in volume. Plus 115. I think if you find several of those, you're probably going to come out ahead if you're doing it in volume. Corey Connors is the better golfer and deserves to be a strong favorite.
Hey, Mike, that's a fair point. I wanted to ask you that. Like, if we're looking at round matchups on a regular basis, you're just kind of blindly like, I'm playing underdogs in all these single round matchups.
Yep.
Like, how do you come out in the end? Do you have any kind of like numbers and an analysis on that?
So when I would recommend doing it, honestly, is like round 3 or final round. So where I think that you could have some trouble blindly playing underdogs, it'd be like round 1 of tournaments. But when you've seen that the golfer has played well enough to make a cut and is there, you've seen some data at that point. Yes, I think that when you get into these, I wouldn't call this like a true birdie fest, but a scoring environment like this, I think you're almost always going to be more profitable if you were blindly playing the underdog versus blindly playing the favorite of them.
All right. We actually have more matchups to go through, but I'll tell you what, we're going to do the more matchups and maybe take a second look at the outright board a little later on, because I know we only have Mike McClure for 10 more minutes. So I'd like to do a very quick preview of the US Open. And I'd like to, maybe talk about some outright plays that we're potentially leaning on. I have a couple that I like right off the bat and predictably in the without Scotty Scheffler market, but that's just me. We'll see what the other two have to say. But let's touch on the US Open right after this message from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
We are back on the early wedge, and it's time to talk some U.S. Open here on a Sunday. Well, we're just 4 days away from Oakmont. We got Jason Sobel. We've got Mike McClure. Jason, I see you're wearing the 2017 U.S. Open shirt, so I'm going to start with you. I mean, I think at this point, I know it's still early, but at this point, everybody knows what Oakmont has to offer, and it doesn't have much to offer in terms of low scores, right? We're going to see narrow fairways. We're going to see extremely thick rough. We're going to see large but probably very fast greens. It's going to be a very tough course. What are you looking for from the course, and what are you looking for in a golfer at Oakmont?
So first of all, Sia, the shirt was just a coincidence. I didn't even think about it until you said it. Secondly, look, I love Oakmont, one of my favorite golf courses in the world. I've covered 2 other U.S. Opens there, and I'll be there starting tomorrow, and I can't wait to get out there. This is the quintessential. You've got to keep it in the fairway, and you can't go in the rough. The problem is, like you said, the fairways are going to be very narrow, and you're going to hit it in the rough at times. So if you hit it in the rough, you've got to be a big, brawny player to be able to muscle them out of the rough. As we've seen in the last decade at U.S. Opens, it's no longer Jim Furyk and Lee Janzen and Corey Pavin, short hitters who win the U.S. Open like they used to. You hit fairways and greens and go win yourself, par your way to a U.S. Open. Now it's Bryson DeChambeau, it's John Rahm, it's Dustin Johnson, it's Gary Woodland. It's guys who can hit it a long way because essentially the theory is everybody's going to hit the ball in the rough at some point, and you want guys that can extricate themselves from the rough and still save par. So I'm looking along the same lines. Look, the last 6 major championships have been won by a combination of Scotty Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, Xander Schauffele, and John Rahm. I don't see that changing anytime. Not John Rahm, Rory, of course. But Rahm is one of the names that I would put up there for this week as well. And I have a hard time looking outside that very, very top tier for my outrights. And so this is going to be a week where I focus on finishing position plays and look at guys to get into the top 10 and top 20, because I think that's where there's some value in the market.
Yeah, certainly that market, I think, is something we're going to talk about on the betting show Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and perhaps a little bit on the DFS show on Monday at 7 o'clock, Mike. But, I agree with Jason's assessment, but I also think that just trying to go for more accurate guys, I'm not saying more like accuracy over distance. I'm not suggesting that, but I do think there's going to be plenty of holes where the accurate guys are just in such a better position because of not being in what's going to be likely 5-inch rough just right off the bat on Thursday. So what are your thoughts? Is it kind of like, I don't want to say bomb and gouge, I don't want to reduce it to that, but are you really looking for like super distance here, or like how much of that accuracy are you combining in? Because I think the off the tee play, whichever side you're on, I think the off the tee play is going to be paramount here.
Yeah, I mean, the off the tee play is definitely going to matter. Still going to favor distance. I'm certainly that's going to be a tiebreaker. There's no doubt. Club head speed, which again, very much correlated to driving distance, and just strokes gained total, tee to green play. I'm looking at the top players in the world, right? Guys that play well in difficult tests of golf. As Jason mentioned, it's going to be Scotty Scheffler and Bryson DeChambeau at the top. You can throw Rory in there if you want. But I personally, in this setup, in this situation, everything coming in, I think it's hard to have anyone other than Scotty and Bryson be 1 and 2. I also think we saw it a little bit this week. I know you can say it was a little bit of a tune-up for Rory and just kind of whatever. I think Rory falls off the rest of the season after completing everything that he's completed. I just unfortunately think that's where it's headed, and that's the way I'm going to play it. So yeah, for me, it'll be Scotty and Bryson, a very clear 1 and 2. Other guys that can mix in, if you're ready for names, I can't quit Patrick Cantlay. I'll have a little bit of Cantlay. Other guys, Tyrrell Hatton's popping a little bit for me, which is always an experience in itself. And then Shane Lowry again.
Yeah. Okay. So Shane Lowry was a name I was going to bring up. So first of all, can we see, Josh, when you get a chance, can you put up the odds at BetMGM? Because the comment that Mike McClure just made about Rory McIlroy, I think is starting to be reflected in a lot of the markets. And I do want to see if BetMGM has already flipped the script on having Bryson actually pass Rory McIlroy. And there it is. He has. So Scotty is still standing at plus 275. And now we have Bryson DeChambeau as the second favorite at plus 800. And Rory has drifted all the way. I mean, I remember Rory at some books just a couple of days ago was like plus 850. Now he's
plus 700. Yeah.
Plus 700. Okay. Yeah. Now he's plus 1100. And then that's followed by John Rahm, who has sort of been in that plus 1200 range. And then you see a pretty big drop off to Xander at plus, looks like 2200, and then Colin and Ludwig. And then you get to Joaquim and JT. And then your guy, Patrick Cantlay. Jason, I look at this board and I think two things. And I think we all kind of think two things. One thing we definitely think, and that's Scotty Scheffler is going to win this tournament. I think that as the more difficult it gets, the more it favors Scotty Scheffler. Although there are guys that can mix in, and that includes Rory, Bryson, John Rahm, maybe Xander if he's fixed some of his issues. I think there's at least an argument for guys like Colin and Cantlay and Ludwig, and I think that's about it from the pool here, Jason. Who is going to challenge Scotty here? Are there any names?
Look, I like Scotty too, and I think it very well could be one of those weeks where you like Scotty, I like Scotty, everybody likes Scotty, everyone picks him to win, and he doesn't win just because of the nature of betting. When everyone zigs, you've got to zag a little bit. And so if I am getting away from Scotty, the one name that jumps out to me is John Rahm. I think John Rahm got a little taste of what it's like once again at the PGA Championship last month, and he's burning to get back to being in contention again in a major championship, proving some people wrong, whether that's just inside his head or is actually a real thing that people think that he left for live and can't play good golf anymore, which is ridiculous. But I think John Rahm's the guy that I want to chase on this board. I know a lot of people will be on Bryson, a lot of people jumping off Rory, a lot of people will look at the Xander number and just say, I can bet Xander at that number because he's so good at the U.S. Open. But Rahm's really the one that sticks out to me is like, if someone besides Scotty is going to win this golf tournament, that's the guy.
Mike, I am going to be betting the without Scotty market, and BetMGM doesn't have it yet, but some of the major books have the without market. What I noticed 2 days ago when I wrote a short article for CBS Sports and SportsLine, where I, by the way, featured John Rahm, who Jason just talked about, and Shane Lowry, who you just talked about. I featured them both in the without market. One thing I noticed a couple of days ago was that Rahm in the without market was plus 1,100 versus the true odds with him were plus 1,200. So there wasn't much of a gap. Same with Bryson. There was only like a 1 point fall off. Now they've changed it like a little bit more, where Rahm in the without market is plus 900 now. Bryson in without market is plus 650 as opposed to the plus 800 and plus 1,200. Your thoughts on the without market?
I think it could be warranted. Again, I feel great about Scotty. The one that I would like to get is, you know, Rory's going to be included in a lot of those when you look at the secondary ones, which is fine. Again, I don't think Rory's going to contend here, but I do like the idea. If you don't want to back Bryson, catching the without Scotty, Bryson, Rahm, and Rory market, I think that swallows a ton of the true win equity. So that's where I would really, you know, if say you wanted to back someone like Patrick Reed, Tyrrell Hatton, Cantlay, some of those guys, even Shane Lowry, removing Scotty, Rahm, Bryson, I think is a huge deal here.
Yeah, in that taking out those big four, Shane Lowry is 25-1 right now over at DK, and in the straight up. Go ahead.
I don't interrupt there, but there's a real chance here that you're talking Scotty, Bryson are 1 and 2. I mean, you're talking about your guy that you're backing could finish third in this tournament and still cash. Yeah. It's not just, you know, you're hoping your guy runners up to Scotty. I feel very strong that at least 2 of Scotty, Bryson, and Rahm are going to finish in the top 3 or 4 of this tournament.
Alex Jones in the chat says, see, I don't like Rahm in the without market because he's the type of guy that doesn't care about coming in second. Yeah, Alex, we saw that last time, but that's because he was so far back, he had to go for it. He was like 3 or 4 strokes back, and he just had to go YOLO. I mean, I think Rahm could be playing from a lead, again, in the without market. And I think there are instances where he's not necessarily going to have to defer to just going YOLO like he had to last time out. Jason, your reaction?
It's also not really a golf course where you can do that. Like I know it's easy for us to sit here on a podcast, go, oh man, he's going to be aggressive today. When you're out there on the golf course at Oakmont, you're like, I don't know, I've got 184 to a tucked pin, and if I miss it a little bit, the ball's going to bounce 30 yards over into some thick rough. Like you can't just like fire at flag sticks there like you could a little bit at Quail Hollow and get yourself into some trouble. So I don't know if that's as much of a factor as we saw last month at the PGA.
All right, Mike, I know you have to go in probably less than 60 seconds. Let me ask you 2 names. If we could reduce it down, maybe in the without market, is it, or whatever, either market, is it Bryson and Lowry? You mentioned Cantlay. What are 2 names that, whether it's DFS or betting, you're going to be focused upon that are not named Scotty Scheffler?
Yeah, let me pull up the DFS pricing real quick because it is out.
Love that.
Yeah, I like Bryson still for sure. I mean, there's a huge discount. I don't know if you see, is this number right on Scotty? Is he really 14-4?
14-4.
That's
okay.
Amazing.
So yeah, I mean, I'm playing Bryson over Scotty when there's 11,000 versus 14-4. So I'm very clearly going to be on Bryson there. And then Shane Lowry is the guy for me. He's only 7,800. I'll throw Patrick Reed in at 6,900, and that'll basically be a really strong start for me.
I will say, Mike, once again, for a major, they're doing sub 6,000 prices, and like there's players in there. It's not just the guys who qualified that you've never heard of. Like they're legit PGA Tour players who can finish in the top 20, even top 10, who are way down that board.
Yep.
Yeah, Mike, I know you have to bounce out for some HQ. We're going to see you on the Monday DFS show on the SportsLine YouTube channel at 7:00. So thanks for being a part of this show. We'll see you certainly next week for we got so much content coming. We've got the network shows, we've got YouTube shows, more content than you can imagine. So make sure you keep it locked in. Jason, as Mike exits, let me ask you a follow-up question about some of the live players. We talked about Bryson, and I think, listen, people are going to like Bryson for good reason. We haven't really I guess Mike just brought up Patrick Reed, and I think Patrick Reed is a fine play. Are there any other names that jump out? I mean, we kind of touched on John. Oh, actually, you didn't just touch on John Rahm, right? You kind of like John Rahm here. I do too. Any other live players, and do you want to reflect a little bit more on Rahm's potential here?
I might like at the current number Rahm more than Bryson, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And I like Bryson a lot. Look, I think it's coming from that top tier. We've seen sort of the live guys that are hit and the live guys that are miss. I mean, there's a certain line of demarcation between them right now where you've got the guys that show up for the big ones, and that's certainly Bryson and Rahm, and I think Reed is probably part of that mix. Jury's still out a little bit on Joaquin Niemann, who had his first top 10 in a major just last month. And then there are guys that Cameron Smith that just don't come back. Cameron Smith, who hits it pretty crooked off the tee and hasn't been as good over the last year and a half as he was beforehand. I can't imagine anybody playing him anywhere close to this market. I mean, maybe some people say, well, Dustin Johnson won here 9 years ago, so he can do it again. No, look, Dustin's clearly checked out. So I think we kind of understand who the live guys are, what they are, who we're looking at for this coming week. So I will also get into, I didn't give you any names a little further down the board. I said it's more of a finishing position type of week for me. I know Mike mentioned Cantlay. I think Cantlay and Fleetwood are your prototypical top 10 floor plays that you might not even see them on TV on the weekend. And then all of a sudden you look at the leaderboard on Sunday night and you're like, oh, they finished tied for 8th place. And I never even saw their shots. They were never in contention. They both finished at 3 over par, 6 shots back, and we cashed the top 10 tickets. So that's kind of the week it feels like for me, for each of those guys. Really like Keegan Bradley. A lot of people have talked about that name. I don't know that I'll get on him in the outright market just because I think you're wasting your money a little bit, but I really like Maverick McNeely, who's played really good golf on some big boy golf courses, both Torrey and Muirfield Village. He had top 5s this year. I could be convinced on Sepp Straka. I'm waiting for the Sepp Straka roller coaster ride to kind of hit the down cycle a little bit. And it hasn't yet. He's played some great golf this year. So Straka could be a guy that I like. And Harris English keeps playing these big boy golf courses really well also. He's played some between Torrey and Quail, being first and second at those two. I think Harris English has some equity as well in these finishing position markets.
I was going to ask you pretty much about all those players. I was actually focused on guys like that, guys that I think are ball strikers that maybe can do the thing where they actually don't get it in a lot of the rough. Obviously everybody's going to find the rough, but if you get like a Colin Morikawa or a Sepp Straka or Corey Connors that can just consistently find the fairway, and we know, one thing we know about this course, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, you're not going to see a lot of long irons here, right? I mean, we're going to see a lot of wedges, a lot of shorter irons coming in. So, I mean, I feel like if you're in the fairway and you're just good with your mid to wedge iron game, that you're okay. Your thoughts?
I don't know. It's a great point, Sia, and it depends how players decide to attack this golf course, because we talk about how important it is to be in the fairway. So if you're a long hitter that says, I'm not that straight, I can't put myself in the rough, all of a sudden you say, okay, I'm going to take a 4-iron off the tee and I'm going to put something in the fairway. Well, now, of course, you're 50 yards further back from where you would have been with a driver. Now you're hitting a mid-iron into the green instead of a wedge. So I think it's I think it's completely fascinating to see like what these players do, how they attack the golf course. I think there'll be a lot of different ways to do it. I think once guys get out there and look at the rough and try to figure out like, all right, I can hit it out of the rough in certain spots, I can't in others. USGA loves having sort of differentiated rough where my ball might land right next to yours and mine is sitting up nicely and I got a little flyer lie into the green and it's going to be nice, and yours is 2 feet away and it's sitting so far down that you've got to take a wedge just to hack it back out to the fairway. And that's sort of what happens. Luck is a big part of this game, and luck's going to be a big part of who's on the U.S. Open leaderboard this week.
Yeah, and one thing to clarify, too, is that we're not going to have graduated rough here, right? I mean, we could have trampled down rough because of the crowd, but my understanding is that, like, there's no first, second, third cut. It's just 5-inch rough. So if you're in the rough, you're in the rough. Now, the lie, obviously, is going to be different with each of these potentially, but that's something to consider. If you miss the fairway, like, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble with having to deal with the rough. Any final thoughts before we transition back to some stuff that's going on today?
Just can't wait to get out there. It's like I said, one of my favorite golf courses. I do think, I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be a top tier player who wins the golf tournament. We're going to see some different names that are up there, but you've just got to be on all facets of your game. This is one of those where the prototypical US Open, which is You want to be long off the tee because, long is better than short, but you've got to keep it the short stuff too. And ball striking, like you said, Sia, ball striking is so important, but you're going to miss a lot of these greens. The ball is just going to fall off these greens, and you got to be really good with a wedge in your hands. And on greens running 14.5, 15 on the stimp, you've got to make some putts. That's golf. So it's going to be the best golfers, the guys who do everything really well, who are going to be on top of this leaderboard. And that just, I think that cuts off a lot of the value because it is the guys who are the best players in the world. I mean, this is kind of how it's supposed to happen. USGA, Sandy Tatum, 1974 at Wingfoot said, we're not looking to embarrass the best players in the world. We're looking to identify them. That's sort of been the USGA's mantra for the last 50 years. And that's what we're going to see this week, is not that they're trying to embarrass these guys. They're trying to identify the best players. Oakmont has a great way of identifying who the best players are. And I would expect that those best players are going to be the ones on top of the leaderboard. And I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of surprises.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be respectful to the field here. And I'll leave you with this question, Jason. How many players can actually over 4 rounds win this tournament? I mean, can we reduce it to like 5 to 7 players, or am I just overstating it just to like make a headline for the show? Like, I think that's what everybody's saying, by the way. I don't think I'm different in saying what I just said, but I mean, is there room maybe for like a Straka or a Connors, or maybe not Connors, maybe like a Morikawa, who frankly, I don't think people are considering, a Ludwig, who people think like, yeah, maybe has a chance, but aren't really considering. Is the pool 10 to 15 instead of 5 to 7?
I will say this much. I don't know what the odds could be. You talked about the without market, and I'll even take Rory out of this. My favorite 4 would be Scheffler, Bryson, Rahm, and Schauffele. And so if I could take those 4 guys and get an even money bet against you having the other 152, I think I'd do it. So that's my way of answering that question. Is I'll give you all the Sepp Strakas and the Colin Morikawas and the Keegan Bradleys and the Patrick Cantleys and the Tommy Fleetwoods and all those guys like that. And I'll take my chances with the big boys up top.
You know what's funny about that, Jason, is that bet's going to be offered, because I'm pretty sure it was offered at the PGA Championship, where they basically gave you like four guys, and they were like, these guys versus the field, and it was close. I think it was close to even money. I even think the 4 might have been a slight favorite. I can't remember because I didn't make the bet, but we're going to have that market. We're going to have a lot of markets, which means we're going to have a lot to discuss over the week from a golf standpoint, but certainly from a betting and a DFS standpoint as well. For now, that's just going to conclude our U.S. Open preview. Obviously, way more to come. Make sure you have your notifications turned on, specifically this week with SportsLine, because not only do we have all the golf stuff, but there's some special shows coming up with other sports, including an MLB live betting show on Wednesday that you're definitely going to want to tune into. But again, that'll wrap it up for now for the U.S. Open. But we do transition, Jason. Let's go back to the course real quick. There's some matchups I want to talk to you about, but I do want to point out some scores. Like, we know this course is gettable. We know the weather is going to be fine today, even for the afternoon guys. I'm looking at Grillo's 4 under through 6. Jason, we've got Lanto Griffin, who didn't he have to? Oh, no, he qualified for the U.S. Open, but he didn't have to qualify for this tournament, right? He was just in this tournament. Lanto is 5 under through 12. I love Lanto, by the way. He just hasn't been. Carson Young's 3 under. Like, there aren't many high scores here. There's a lot of low numbers.
Noah Goodwin, 5 under through 6.
There you go. I was just scrolling up. That is crazy. Noah Goodwin, 5 under through 6. I'm trying to see. Is there an eagle? No eagles. Just birdied the first 4, par on the 5th, and birdied the 6th. Let's see if he's got a hole-in-one on the 7th. No, he hasn't teed off yet. I mean, this is incredible. This means to me, Jason, one of these guys that's 11, 12, 13, 14 under, they're going to have to shoot maybe 6 or 7 under to win this thing.
Yeah, look, it's going to take somebody. I think somebody shoots like a 63 from that big pack and goes out there and wins this golf tournament. We saw 63s yesterday from Hodges and Kevin Yu. There might have been one or two more. Alex Smalley further down the board. I think it's going to be someone in that 2 to 3 shots back range who shoots 7 under, maybe even 8 under, and wins the golf tournament. Because the guys aren't backing up. I mean, that's not to say that nobody will back up. Somebody of this, top 24 on the board right now within 4 shots is going to shoot 70, 71 and just not be able to make anything. But at some point, everyone's going to be sort of in that mid 60s range, the 64 to 66, 67. And somebody's just going to make a couple extra putts, shoot 63 and win this golf tournament.
So we see David talk in the chat says David Hayden Springer is 6 under.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's 6 under and he's still tied for 53rd, which is just kind of a funny statement. Okay, so let's close it here, at least as far as the outrights are concerned. And then I'm going to ask you about a couple of matchups before we get out of here. But when you're talking about a guy that can do what Hodges, what Kevin Yu, and what, let's see, Alex Smalley did yesterday, shooting that 63, when you look at the 10 unders and above, and honestly, I don't think the 10 unders are going to win personally. Like, I don't think Smalley or Rosner or Kevin Roy or Hadwin can win this thing personally. But I think the 11 unders are in play, certainly the 12 unders. When you're looking at a guy that you think can go low on a Sunday, like the names that come to mind, just looking at the board real quick. I mean, obviously the guys at the top, I guess. I'm on Ryan Fox, so I'll go with him. I'm going to X out Hodges and Yu. I certainly don't think they can do it back-to-back days. I don't know that I think McCarty can do it. And I know we talked about him earlier. Mackenzie Hughes and Jake Knapp at 12 under have my interest in terms of just being able to go low and absolutely catch fire. Putnam, I'm ruling out. Hoey, I'm ruling out. This is just me, folks. Ben On, I think I'm going to rule out. Cam Young, I might rule in at 11 under. Those are the names that I'm like, okay, they can just go out and just have this crazy, some eagles, some birdie streaks, all of those things.
I think what I'm looking at, Sia, are the players that need a win versus the players who are sort of playing with house money a little bit. I mean, Ryan Fox is a great example. Ryan Fox won last month in Myrtle Beach. Wasn't a huge win by any means, but it got him the exemption, it got him money, got him points, got him everything he needed. He's all set moving forward on the PGA Tour, and so he doesn't need a victory. I love the fact that he's freed up. Matteo Manassero, who came over from the DP World Tour, had a great season last year. He was one of the top 10 and is playing for the first time full-time on the PGA Tour this year. He needs a win to stay out there, to get some points, to get into the playoffs, to get all those good things that come with being a PGA Tour star. That weighs on you a little bit more. So I'm looking at players that don't necessarily need the victory. Fox is one of them. I'm not betting a favorite going into Sunday with this many guys having a chance to win. So, good luck on your Fox ticket. I think Patrick had Fox as well. I hope you guys crush it with Fox, and I love that guy too. I had him at Myrtle Beach a month ago, and he's a really good dude. Matt McCarty, though, I keep coming back to him. He's a guy that doesn't need it. He's got the exemption from being on Korn Ferry, number one player on Korn Ferry last year. He won in Utah at the end of last season. He's got everything. He's got things covered. And so he can go out there and free will it a little bit. Mackenzie Hughes, you can say, okay, yeah, Mackenzie Hughes, he's fine. He's got his card. He's been out there forever. But remember, a Canadian trying to win his own national championship. I know Nick Taylor did it a couple of years ago, and that took a lot of the pressure off some of these guys. Talked to Corey Connors the other day, and he told me, yeah, it does take a lot of the pressure off, because we used to be asked, like, when do you think a Canadian's going to win this thing? And now we don't have to deal with those questions from the local media anymore. And so I do think it's a little bit easier than it used to be, but I think it's still difficult for a guy like that. You look at some of these guys, they're trying to win. Rico Hoey, I mean, this would be massive for his career. Doesn't mean he can't do it. Ben On intrigues me. Cameron Young intrigues me. These are guys that they're not going anywhere. Their cards are locked up for a while. They're good, solid players. Maybe a lot of ups and downs in their careers, but I like them. And special shout out right now to my guy Thorbjorn Olesen, who is my pre-tournament pick to win, made exactly 0 circles on the card yesterday. He's currently 3 under through 2. Thanks, Thorbjorn. Thanks for showing up the day after. Appreciate it, man.
I had him in my $100 showdown entry yesterday with Rasmus. The other guys were good. Like, I had Ryan Fox, I had Antoine Rosner, I had a couple of good guys. Those 2 guys completely sunk me. And then, listen, we're chasing the upside in showdown, and those guys have plenty of upside to offer. Obviously, other golfing profiles have plenty of upside when you look at this leaderboard. But yeah, they were a combined, I think, 1 over yesterday on a very easy playing course. John in the chat says, so Jake Knapp then. He listened to your explanation. He listened to mine. I think Jake Knapp is actually, what was it, plus 1,200 on him, or was it plus 850? I'm getting confused. But I think it might have been the plus 1,200. Okay, we have it here. Thank you, Josh. It's plus 1,200. I don't think that's bad. The one other thing I'm going to say, and we'll get out of here in a second, is because especially those first handful of holes are so, like, the scoring is just crazy. I mean, you can have eagles on one, but certainly birdie streaks, all of those things. We saw it all day yesterday. If you like Ryan Fox or Matteo Manassero, they're the last ones to go off. So you could have, whether it's a Smalley or a Cam Young or a Jake Knapp or a Mackenzie Hughes, any of those guys could go off with like an eagle or a birdie streak or whatever and just like grab 3 strokes real quick like we're seeing out on the course. Well, guess what? Manasero's and Ryan Fox's odds get a little bit longer. There is no reason, if you like either of those guys at the very top, to take them right now, because there's going to be at least 2 or 3 guys, maybe more, that splash significantly that are chasing these guys down, and all of a sudden they're going to be tied for the lead, or they're going to be in the lead right around the time Ryan Fox tees off or Matteo Manassero tees off. So this is not the time to take those 2 guys, because I guarantee you those numbers are at least going to be a little bit longer right before they tee off. Jason, your response?
Very interesting, Sia, and you're right about the construction of this golf course is really interesting for betting purposes, because we start with a par 5, which is, it's gettable. And we've seen a handful of eagles already on the opening hole. And then we end with a par 5, no other par 5s in between. So I think you can kind of plan ahead a little bit today and know that, okay, if I like, like you said, Fox or Manassero, one of these guys at the top, just wait, because by the time they tee off, there's a good chance they're not in first place anymore. And so you just wait, and those numbers should get longer as they get closer to their tee time, because guys are teeing off on a birdie hole that's potentially even an eagle hole on number 1, and number 2 is not the toughest hole in the world either. And then you can wait. And then later in the day, remember that you've got that par 5 closing hole. So if you like a guy who's 1 or 2 back with 3 to play, don't be afraid to pull the trigger there too, because I think you can make a couple back coming in.
One other thing I want to ask you is a couple of matchups that are still outstanding. One I kind of like, and I'm surprised. I think the money's sort of going the other direction with me. And you might not have a super big opinion on these guys, but Antoine Rosner, I believe, there it is. They tee off at 12:20. He's up against Kevin Roy. They're going out in the same group, obviously. Rosner's minus 105 to Kevin Roy's minus 120. I like Rosner there. Do you have any thoughts on those two? Both of them are hitting it pretty well. I think Rosner's been, both of them have been pretty good off the tee. I love Rosner coming into this tournament, though. That's probably why I played him in DFS. I could see Kevin Roy just backtracking a little bit. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, Roy's numbers look a little bit better through 3 rounds, but Rosner's a more accomplished player. For those who don't know, we've played a lot of golf over on DP World Tour, has a few wins over there. And yeah, I would lean Rosner. It's not a strong lean. But yeah, if you're making me take a side of that, I take Rosner over Roy. Sure. Yeah,
I'm going to take Rosner there. And I'll say this, I won on This is such a great story. I had Rosner against Pavone on Friday. That was my early edge play. And Pavone, if you remember, shot a 12 on his opening hole, which I think was 10. He shot a octuple bogey on his very first hole. So effectively, and Rosner was teeing off a little bit later. They weren't in the same group. So effectively, on hole 1, all I needed was Rosner not to get hurt in the first 18 holes. I mean, it was like, I've never had a no sweat like that in my life. It was unbelievable. So I'm trying to cash on Rosner again, I guess. One other matchup, Shane Lowry is minus 145 against Nick Taylor, who's plus 110. This is one of those where we talked about on the front end of the show, Jason, where I feel like just take the plus 110. Nick Taylor's playing just fine. He didn't have a great round 3, but I'm not paying minus 145. I kind of lean the other way. Do you have any thoughts on that? It goes off in about 30 minutes.
I will admit that I consistently overlook Nick Taylor and I underrate him. He's better than I think, and he proves it time and time again. That said, I like Lowry here. We talked about Connors Mitchell earlier. To me, that feels like a perfect, let's take the favorites in a parlay there with Connors and Lowry over Mitchell and Taylor. That's just me personally. I'll take the better players in each of those. But look, Nick Taylor's shown he can do it before. He can do it again. But Lowry's a guy that he might be just like a little bit too far back, but he can make a little noise today.
Yeah, I will say this. We talked about it in the U.S. Open preview that we just did with Mike McClure. I really like Lowry in the without market next week. If I'm looking for a guy down the board, again, in the without market in that 30-ish to 1 range, I think Lowry profiles really well for next week. One last matchup I'm going to give you. Your guy, no, I'm not going to do Matt McCart against Mackenzie Hughes. I'm going to do Lee Hodges. This is the second to last group out. Plus 100 against Kevin Yu. Kevin Yu's minus 130. Any thoughts there? Again, I would just take these are like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I know the profiles are different, but just give me the plus money.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, this is what we were talking about with Mike earlier, is that if you don't know, if you're sitting there going like, I don't know, they're about the same, I don't really have a good lean. Well, if you do that with 6 different plays and take the plus money in all of them, and 3 of them hit, you're going to be up for the day. I mean, that's probably not the way we want to bet. Is just, hey, just take all the dogs and you should be up a little bit. And if you go 4-2 in these matchups, you're sitting pretty. But I mean, that's kind of the way I feel on that, which isn't like, I really like one over the other, but
there's two different ways to look at matchups, though. You have conviction about golfers going into round 4 that might end up being favorites, maybe dogs too. But then there's like numbers where you're like, gosh, I don't love either of these guys, but that guy shouldn't be plus 110 versus that guy. So like in one case, you're playing the number, and the other case, you're playing the profile on the golfer that you might have liked through 3 rounds and that you liked going into the tournament. So I just think some of these numbers are like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm betting all these dogs, but I would certainly not bet the favorite in a lot of these matchups that I talked about.
I mean, I look at it very much like the NCAA tournament. If you just want to, blindly take all the underdogs with the spread, go ahead, and you're probably going to do pretty well in the first round most years.
Well, except this year. Except this year, Jason.
Well, I blocked out this year. But most years you'll probably wind up doing pretty well. That said, these are kind of like those bets, which is, you know what? I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up, and you're getting plus money on one of the guys. Take them. But, yeah, I don't have a heavy lean on that one at all.
Real quick, I know you're going to Oakmont. It sounds like you're headed there tomorrow. You're going to be able to be on our betting show on Tuesday, or no? Do you know one way or the other?
I should be good for Tuesday, yes. Yeah. Got a ton of stuff going on, doing player interviews throughout the week for SiriusXM, hosting some pregame shows for them, a ton of stuff for us here at CBS, so it's going to be a fun week. I played Oakmont 2 weeks before the Open was held there in 2016. That might be Sobel story time on the Tuesday show this week. That was a fun time, but I've got a little special place in my heart for Oakmont, and I can't wait to get back there this week.
For those of you that don't know what happens on the betting show, usually it's me, Patrick McDonald, Jason Sobel, and Eric Cohen. We give out all our bets across all the different markets and some fun bets as well. But also at the end, we reserve for Jason's story time. And Jason is so fully integrated into like so many of these players and so many of these courses that he always has a good story or two. Jason, do you happen to know which players you're interviewing, or you don't know that schedule yet?
No. I don't actually. So
okay, looking forward to that. We'll talk about that on the Tuesday show, among other places where I'm sure we'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what a great show! What a long, good show. We're going to do this every single Sunday. Although next Sunday, I think we're going to do more recaps than we're going to do live shows. But we've got so much content coming before the tournament and during the tournament. So stay tuned to this channel, CBS Sports Network, and a bunch of other places. On behalf of Jason Sobel, on behalf, of course, Josh on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, and of course, Mike McClure. This has been the Early Wedge. Good luck with your bets today.